The woman in the window. A story about what we see and what we miss. Chapter 1. The Scary Lady. Everyone on Birchwood Lane knew not to look directly at the window. It was the third house from the corner, the one with the overgrown rose bushes along the front wall and the porch, that nobody ever used. The curtains were always pale and heavy, the kind that seemed to drink to light, rather than let it pass, and behind them always was a shape, a silhouette. A woman sitting perfectly still in a chair, watching. We called her the Scary Lady. I don't remember who started it. Maybe it was Finn, who was always the first to name things. Maybe it was Danny, who had a gift for turning ordinary details into legend. But by the time I was 8 years old, and walking home from Hargrove Elementary every afternoon, with my backpack bouncing against my spine, and my sneakers slapping the warm pavement, the name had already hardened into fact. The Scary Lady watched the street. She sat in her window from around 3 o'clock right when school let out, until the last kid had disappeared behind a front door. And she never moved. Not her hands. Not her head. Just her eyes. We imagined. Just those pale, still eyes tracking each of us like a clock hand, ticking from 1 hour to the next. Don't look at her, Finn always said, pulling the bill of his baseball cap down low. As we crossed in front of her house. He was 2 years older than me, which at that age felt like a lifetime of wisdom. If you look at her, she knows you looked. And then she remembers you. Remembers you for what? I asked once. Finn only shook his head in a way that said the question itself was dangerous. Danny had a theory. Danny always had a theory. She said the Scary Lady had once been a teacher, a strict one, the kind who gave you extra homework on Fridays, and kept a list of every mistake you ever made going back years. And that she had retired not out of kindness or age, but because the school board had finally forced her out. After she made someone cry, in front of the whole class. She still watches, Danny explained one afternoon, adjusting her glasses with great authority. Because she can't stop. She watched kids for 40 years. Now she can't help it. I didn't know if any of that was true. I didn't ask my mom, because my mom would have said something sensible and disappointing, like she's just an old woman. Theo? Leave her be. I didn't want sensible. I wanted the legend. At 8 years old, a little fear makes the world feel bigger and more important. Like you are moving through a story rather than just a Tuesday afternoon. So I did what Finn did. I kept my head down. I walked fast. I felt the prickling on the back of my neck that meant eyes on me. Her eyes, and I did not look up until I had passed the rose bushes and reached the safety of the Kowalski family's driveway, where I could breathe normally again. That was my routine for the entire 3rd grade. I perfected it the way you perfect anything, by doing it, every single day, without variation, without thought. Head down. Backpack bouncing. Fast steps. Don't look, don't look, don't look. It never occurred to me to wonder what she was actually doing in that window. It never occurred to me that watching and waiting might be 2 very different things. I was 8. The world was made of categories safe and not safe, known and unknown, and the Scary Lady belonged firmly in the column marked not safe, unknown, avoid. That spring, Everything I thought I knew got rearranged in about 30 seconds flat. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Chapter 2: What we knew about her house. The things we did know, the actual, provable facts, were disappointingly few. Her name was on the mailbox in faded stick-on letters E. Stella. That was it. No first name spelled out. Just the initial and the last name, which Finn immediately pointed out sounded like the beginning of a spell. He wasn't wrong that it sounded mysterious. He was probably wrong about the spell. Her house was old but not neglected, not in the way you'd expect from the story we'd built around her. The rose bushes got pruned every May. We never saw who did it, but they appeared trimmed like a haircut you only notice after it's done. The porch was swept. The mailbox wasn't rusting. Someone hurt, presumably, kept the window glass clean, because on certain afternoons when the sun hit it at just the right angle, the whole pane blazed like a mirror, and you couldn't see anything behind it at all, just light, burning and blank. Daniel, from the year above me, said his grandmother had once chatted with her at the pharmacy, and reported that she was perfectly normal but very quiet. That she bought the same brand of cough drops every time, and always paid an exact change. This was considered, in our group, to be the most suspicious thing of all. Exact change. Who carries exact change? Someone who plans things. Someone who counts. Nobody in our grade had ever spoken to her directly. Nobody had walked up to that porch. The front door, painted a faded sage green, that might once have been quite pretty, was never open. The only sign of interior life besides the silhouette was a small orange glow visible some evenings, which Danny said was a lamp, but which Fenn insisted, at least for a while, was a candle kept burning for reasons he preferred not to specify. My own observations were limited by my self-imposed rule of not looking. But the human eye is a betraying thing. Sometimes I would tell myself I wasn't looking, while looking out of the very corner of my vision, and in those split-second stolen glances, I noticed things I didn't mean to notice. The way her silhouette was always in the same chair, a high-backed one from the look of it. The way her hands rested in her lap, or maybe on the arms of the chair, I couldn't quite tell. The way she was always already there when we came around the corner, as if she had been waiting not just since 3 o'clock, but since the beginning of time. There was one other thing. This one I kept to myself because I didn't know what to do with it. One afternoon in early October, a cold one, the kind where the wind carries the smell of leaves going soft and dark, I had fallen a little behind the others. Finn had stopped to fix his shoe, and Danny had gone ahead, and I was alone on the sidewalk in front of the scary lady's house when a small bird flew into her window. It made a soft, horrible thud and dropped to the porch railing. I froze. And in the stillness that followed, I saw the silhouette move. She leaned forward in her chair. She pressed one hand, I could see it clearly. Then, the pale shape of a hand flat against the glass. And she stayed like that for a long moment, looking at the bird on the railing, before slowly sitting back. I thought about that hand for a long time afterward. How gentle it looked. How still. Not the hand of someone tracking me or counting my mistakes, or storing my name on some internal ledger of wrongdoers. Just a hand pressed to glass in the way that people press their hands to glass, when something small and helpless lands near them, and they want to be closer to it but know they cannot. I didn't tell Fenn or Danny. I folded the memory up small and put it somewhere in the back of my mind, the way you fold a note and stuff it in a pocket. and mostly forget about it until one day it goes through the wash and comes out soft and half legible, but still, somehow, intact. Chapter 3: The Fall. It happened on a Thursday in April, which I remember because Thursdays were library days, and I had a stack of books in my backpack. 4 of them, all from the fantasy section, all more than I could reasonably carry. And the extra weight was what made my balance wrong, on the corner of the sidewalk, where the root from the old oak tree had pushed the concrete up into a little ridge. I'd stepped over that ridge 100 times. 1,000 times. My feet knew it. They didn't know it that Thursday. The backpack tilted. I overcorrected. My sneaker caught the edge of the raised concrete and then I was falling. And it was one of those falls that lasts forever while it's happening. The slow motion version, where you see the ground coming. And you know what it's going to feel like. But you can't stop any of it. Your arms are already out, already knowing. And then the pavement arrives all at once, with a sound that is partly the slap of your palms, and partly the sound in your own chest. My knees hit second. Both of them, at almost the same moment. I lay there for a second, just one, in that strange, suspended moment after a fall when your body is still deciding what it feels. I could hear Finn somewhere behind me saying, "Oh, man." And I could hear Danny making a sound that was trying very hard not to be a gasp. I pushed myself up onto my knees and looked at my hands. Both palms were scraped, red and raw-edged, with little specks of grit pressed into the skin. My right knee was worse. The knee of my jeans had torn brand new jeans, 3 weeks old. My mother was going to be so upset, and through the tear, I could see blood, real blood, not much, but enough, welling up in the little pitted scrapes along my kneecap. I was 8 years old. I was doing that thing where you are deciding whether to cry. It's a real decision, at that age. You feel the pressure behind your eyes and the tightening in your throat, and you have maybe 3 seconds to choose. Swallow it down, or let it come. Finn was there. Danny was there. There were other kids on the sidewalk. Crying would be noted. Crying would be discussed. So I pressed my lips together and looked at my knee and tried very hard to think about something else. Theo. Finn crouched beside me. "You okay?" "That was a bad one." "I'm fine," I said, though my voice had gone thin and careful the way voices go when they are carrying something heavy. It was at that exact moment, before I had stood up, before anyone had decided what happened next, that I heard the front door of the third house from the corner open. The sound was unmistakable. The particular creak and sigh of an old door being pulled back on old hinges. I looked up before I could stop myself, because my body reacted before my mind had a chance to remind it about rules and categories and things best avoided. She was already on the porch. She was smaller than I expected. That was the first thing. The silhouette had always suggested someone large and monumental, but the woman coming down the porch steps was compact and spare, with white hair pinned up in a loose way, like it had started the day in a bun and gently given up by afternoon. She wore a pale blue cardigan over a house dress, and her shoes were the sort with low heels and a single strap, very proper, very deliberate. She moved carefully down the steps. She was old, properly old, with the particular carefulness of someone who has learned that the ground cannot always be trusted, and she was carrying something in one hand. Finn made a sound behind me. Something between a word and a breath. She reached me. She didn't rush, but she didn't dawdle either. She moved at exactly the speed of someone who knew what they were coming to do and had already decided to do it. When she stopped in front of me, she looked at my knee with a calm, level attention, the way you look at something when you are assessing it, rather than reacting to it, and then she crouched down. Crouching at her age, she made it look like nothing. "Knees first," she said. Her voice was lower than I expected, and clear, and unhurried. "Knees always think they need to get there first. Doesn't matter how many times you fall. The knees forget." She held out what she'd been carrying. A bandage, not the small flesh-colored kind, but one of the wide ones, the proper ones, with the gauze pad in the middle. And next to it, balanced on her palm without ceremony, a piece of candy. One of those old-fashioned lemon drops, yellow and sugar-coated, that come wrapped in cellophane twisted at both ends. Both of them already in her hand. Already ready. Before I had started to cry. Before any of us had said a word. I stared at them. Then I stared at her. Her face was the kind of face that has been lived in for a long time, not old the way I thought of old. Not scary old, but weathered old, with deep smile lines and a look in her eyes that was patient and amused and a little sad all at once. The way a face looks when it has seen enough of the world to know exactly which moments matter. "The bandage is for the knee," she said, in case I had not worked that out. "The candy is for the part that doesn't show." That was when I almost cried. Not from the pain. From something else entirely. Chapter 4. Eloise. Her name was Eloise. Eloise Stella, which turned out not to be a spell at all, though it remained one of the lovelier names I had ever heard, with its 3 smooth syllables and the way it seemed to belong to another, more gracious era, an era of proper letter writing and good manners kept without effort, like breathing. She had been a second-grade teacher for 38 years, she told me. Not at Hargrove. At a school 3 towns over, which was why none of our parents had recognized her, why no older sibling had a story to tell. She had retired 6 years ago. She mentioned this without drama, the way people mention geography, and moved to Birchwood Lane to be closer to her sister, who had since moved away again due to her sister's husband's job, which was the sort of thing that happens and cannot be helped. She said all this matter-of-factly, standing over me on the sidewalk while I held the bandage wrapper and decided what to do with it. Finn and Danny had not left. I would have understood if they had. But they stayed, Finn with his cap still low over his eyes, Danny with her glasses, catching the afternoon light, both of them at a respectful distance but definitely listening. The other kids who had been nearby had slowed to watch and then gradually moved on, disappointed, perhaps, that the scary lady was doing something so unremarkable as bandaging a knee. "Does it still hurt?" Eloise asked, looking at my knee, which she had cleaned with a little package antiseptic wipe she'd also brought, because of course she had. "A little," I said honestly. "Not as much." "Good. The first minute is always the worst. After that it becomes just information." She stood, steady and unhurried. "Your mother will want to look at it when you get home. Show her." "Okay," I said. I should have stood up and walked away then. That would have been the logical conclusion. But I didn't, and neither did she, and in that small pause, something crept in, the question I hadn't meant to ask, the one that had been folded up small in my pocket since October. "Do you watch us?" I said. "Every afternoon?" Eloise looked at me. It was a direct look, the kind that doesn't flinch or glance away to give you time to take the question back. Her eyes were gray-blue, I noticed, with a steadiness to them that reminded me of the color of water on overcast days, not cold. Just level. Yes, she said. Simple as that. I do. I waited. There seemed to be more. I had a classroom full of children for a very long time, she said. You watch children really watch them for that many years, and it becomes part of what you do. Your eyes just go there. To the noise and the movement and the little dramas. She paused. 3 o'clock is a good time. Everyone is so relieved. I thought about 3 o'clock. The noise of the school doors opening. The way the whole street changed in about 90 seconds from quiet to a flood of backpacks and voices and running feet. I had never thought about it from a window. I had always been the one running. I thought you were I started, and then stopped, because I did not quite know how to finish that sentence without saying something rude. Eloise waited. She was very good at waiting. The kids think you're scary, I said, because it seemed worse to code it. I thought you were scary. I'm sorry. She looked at me for a moment. Then she made a sound, not quite a laugh, but adjacent to one. A sound of genuine, private amusement. Children always think the watching adult is threatening, she said. Even when the adult is simply watching because they love the sight of children going home. Because going home at the end of the school day is one of the best things there is. And they know it but don't know it yet. And watching someone experience that thing as she paused again, searching for the word. Nourishing, she finally said. It's nourishing. I didn't fully understand that then. But I stored it away, the same way I had stored the hand pressed to the window glass in October. Certain things you carry before you know what they're for. Finn had drifted a couple of steps closer. I could see him processing something, the way his jaw went slightly sideways when he was thinking hard about a thing. Danny had pushed her glasses up and was looking at Eloise with an expression. I recognized the look she wore when a theory she had built carefully and held proudly was being quietly dismantled in front of her. You have candy ready, Danny said. Every day? Eloise glanced at her. Not every day, she said. But most. Old habit. She tilted her head slightly. Second graders. You never know when a knee is going to happen. But we're third graders, Finn said. Knees don't check grades, Eloise said, and this time it was something closer to a real smile, small, contained, but genuinely warm, like a room with one good lamp on. We stood there a moment longer. The afternoon light had gone golden the way it does in April, that particular brass and honey quality that makes everything look like a photograph of itself. I was aware of how strange this was, standing in front of the scary lady's house, talking to the scary lady, who had turned out to be a retired second-grade teacher named Eloise, who kept bandages and lemon drops in her cardigan pocket and pressed her hand to windows when birds fell. I was also aware, already, that I was going to have to recalibrate a great many things. Thank you, I said, for the bandage. And the candy. You're welcome, she said. For both. She watched us go. I know because this time I looked back. I was at the Kowalski driveway, my old breathing point, my old finish line, and I turned, and she was standing on the sidewalk still, and she raised one hand in a small wave when she saw me turn. Not a dramatic wave. Just a hand lifted slightly, the way you acknowledge someone across a room when you can't speak but want them to know you see them. I raised mine back. Then I turned and walked the rest of the way home. Chapter 5. What the window actually was. Yeah, I'm 31 years old now, which means more than 2 decades have passed since that Thursday in April when I fell in the oak root. Rich and Eloise Stella came out of her house with a bandage and a lemon drop before I had even decided whether to cry. I think about it more often than you would expect. I think about it the way you think about the moments that quietly rerouted you, not a dramatic rerouting, not a movie-style epiphany, but the small, incremental kind, where you arrive somewhere different without quite being able to point to the exact step that changed the direction. After that Thursday, things on Birchwood Lane shifted. Not loudly. Not all at once. Finn stopped pulling his cap down when we passed her house. That was first. He still didn't look up, not right away, but he stopped the deliberate act of shielding. A few days later he gave a single nod toward the window, and I don't know if she saw it, but it seemed important that he did it. Danny, being Danny, revised her theory. She didn't abandon it entirely, she was too committed to the framework, but she amended it. The scary lady was, she now explained to anyone who would listen, a retired teacher, who had spent her whole career watching over children and could not turn that off, which was not ominous but was instead a kind of professional loyalty that extended beyond the job itself. This version of the story spread through our grade with surprising ease, because children are often more willing to revise their beliefs than adults assume, as long as the revised version is still interesting, and this one was. I started looking up when I walked by. Not staring, not stopping, just looking up the way you acknowledge a neighbor, a small, ordinary glance of recognition. I saw her in the window each time, in the same high-backed chair, her hands in her lap. Sometimes she was reading. I noticed this only once she had become someone I was allowed to see, a book held in both hands, her head bent over it, not watching at all. Not always watching. Just sometimes. Waiting for 3 o'clock to arrive the way it always did, with its flood of noise and relief, and then taking it in the way she had described, the way you take in something nourishing, something you return to because it steadies you. I stopped by twice more that spring. I want to be honest about this, I didn't do it as often as I should have, and I didn't do it with any particular plan. Once I had a bruised elbow from a collision in gym class, and I'm not sure I can fully explain why I ended up at her door, except that it seemed natural in a way it had not seemed natural before. She examined the elbow with the same calm assessor's eye, declared it fine, and gave me a lemon drop anyway. The second time was just because I had walked past the house and felt peculiarly, without explanation, that it would be rude not to knock, and so I did, and she answered and seemed entirely unsurprised to see me, and made 2 cups of tea, one for her and one for me, with milk in both because I was a child and children could be trusted to like tea with milk. We talked both times. Not about anything in particular. About school, about the book she was reading, about whether I was going to keep playing soccer in the fall. I was. She asked good questions, the kind teachers know how to ask questions that didn't feel like a test but somehow still made you say more than you planned. She listened with that same steady attention she'd given my knee that first day, the kind that made you feel that what you were saying mattered and was worth the space it was taking up. I asked her, that second visit, why she lived alone. I was old enough to know it was probably too personal a question, and not old enough to stop myself asking it anyway. She was quiet for a moment. Outside, a car passed. Someone's sprinkler system came on in the yard next door. My husband died 11 years ago, she said. We didn't have children. I had the classroom instead. She said it without self-pity, with the matter-of-fact tone of someone who has arranged their life around A particular absence for long enough that the arrangement has become its own kind of architecture. Something you live inside rather than against. I have a full life, she added. A quiet one. But full? I believed her. The tea proved it. Somehow the way she had made it without asking how I liked it, had simply made it correctly, with the ease of someone who had made 10,000 cups of tea and knew how to read a room. The books on every flat surface. The lamp that Finn had thought was a candle burning for strange reasons, which was in fact a very nice reading lamp with a warm bulb, angled precisely over the chair. The chair itself, worn in one spot on the right arm where she rested her elbow. It was a life, a real one, thoroughly lived, with its own textures and losses and pleasures and habits. We had turned it into a legend because it was easier than seeing it. Because from the outside, a still figure in a window looks like a mystery to be solved or a threat to be categorized. And it takes a skinned knee and a bandage and a lemon drop to make you understand that some people sit in windows not because they are watching for something, but because they are simply unhurriedly, gratefully watching. I moved away the summer after 5th grade. My dad's job took us to another city, another street, another walk home from school with a different cast of characters and different hedges and no one sitting in a window that I ever noticed. I wrote Eloise one letter. We were 9 and 11 by then. Finn and I, old enough to know a letter was owed but not quite experienced enough to write a good one. Mine was short and a little formal. Signed your friend, Theo, which I meant entirely. I don't know if she wrote back. We had moved and the forwarding address was complicated, and I was 9, and things got lost the way things get lost. I am 31 now. I live in a city where the school down the block lets out at 3:15, and sometimes on the days when I am working from home, when the afternoon is warm, and the window is the best place to sit with my laptop and my coffee, I am in the window at that hour. I see the kids come out. The flood of them, loud and suddenly loose, swinging their bags, stopping to argue about nothing, racing the last half block for reasons only they understand. I watch. I don't mean to, exactly, but I do. I think, every time, of Eloise. Of the word she used, nourishing. Of how right it is, how precise, how much more accurate than anything I would have chosen. Watching children go home is nourishing. I don't fully know why. Maybe it's the relief you can see in them, the way the afternoon opens up and they become themselves in it. Maybe it's something about continuity, the fact that the 3 o'clock release has been happening for longer than any of us have been alive. That it will happen long after we are gone. That there is something permanent and trustworthy in the daily fact of school ending and children going home. Maybe it's just that watching someone experience something good is one of the better things available to us. Even when we're not part of it. Maybe especially then. I don't keep bandages in my pocket. I don't have lemon drops on hand. But I have thought about it. I have thought about it more than once. Because the thing about Eloise, the thing I understood only gradually, across the years between 8 and now, is that she wasn't just ready with a bandage because she was an old teacher with old habits. She was ready because she had been watching carefully for 38 years. She knew what 3 o'clock looked like. She knew what knees looked like, and palms, and the expression on a child's face in the 3 seconds before they decide whether to cry. She had paid attention for so long and so thoroughly that she could see things coming before they arrived. That's not scary. That is the opposite of scary. That is, if you're looking for a word for it, and I am. I've been looking for it for a long time. That is care. The practiced, patient, long accumulated kind. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that is simply there when the pavement comes up to meet you, before you've even started to cry. A bandage and a lemon drop balanced on an open palm. The candy is for the part that doesn't show. 23 years later, I still carry that sentence somewhere on my chest. Folded small, gone soft and half legible from being carried so long. I think it might be the truest thing anyone has ever said to me.